Welcome on board, chosen one. The air shifts the second you step in, and you can feel it too. That strange quiet in the room, that's not peace. That's the universe pulling up a chair because you're finally ready to hear the truth they never wanted you to know. And trust me, they hoped you'd show up clueless. They hoped you'd walk around thinking everything that happened to you was random. But look at you, walking in here like someone who already suspects the game was rigged. Someone who can smell a setup from a mile away. Someone who's done pretending they didn't notice the crack in the mask. Press like and subscribe before we go further, chosen one. Consider it the price of entry for a message they wish you'd never hear. So let's talk about the move they thought would take you out. When they said, "You're getting too focused," what they meant was, "We're scared you're waking up." When they whispered, "It's just a coincidence," what they meant was, "We didn't expect you to put the pieces together this fast." And when they sent that person into your life, all charming and familiar, mirroring your energy like a perfect reflection, they smirked. They said, "Watch this. This will slow them down." They swore you'd fold. They swore you'd bend. Oh, the legends in the shadows really thought they'd cracked the code on you. But look who's still standing. Look who didn't bow. Look who refused to fall for the same cheap trick that's worked on everyone else for decades. This is the part they can't explain. How someone with your heart, your loyalty, your softness, your depth didn't get destroyed by the one move that ruins most people. They watched you meet someone who felt like your other half. Someone who showed up out of nowhere, acting like they'd known you in another lifetime. Someone who understood your silences better than your friends, understood your words. And instead of sinking, you sharpened. Instead of losing yourself, you found the part you'd been missing, your awareness. Here's the truth they hoped you'd never speak out loud. That person wasn't fate. It wasn't some cosmic reward. It wasn't the universe dropping a soulmate at your feet as a prize for surviving pain. It was a distraction, a precision-made, tailor-fit distraction built to slow your rise. They studied your patterns. They studied your pain. They studied your dreams, and they sent someone who felt like the perfect match because they thought matching you would mute you. But chosen one, when has anything ever muted you? The universe watched you walk right into that connection with a full heart. You gave pure energy, real love, real trust. And they thought that would blind you. They thought the emotional hit would be enough to take you out for months, maybe years. They wanted you confused, dependent, addicted to the idea of someone who was never meant to stay. They wanted you so locked onto that twin flame fantasy that you'd forget who you were before they walked in. They wanted you distracted, not destroyed. They needed you weak, not gone. And yet the moment the illusion cracked, you didn't crumble. You detonated. You turned the trap into fuel. You turned the heartbreak into clarity. The same moment that should have broken, you turned you into someone they never planned for. Someone too aware, too sharp, too hard to manipulate. Someone who asks the right questions before falling for the wrong people. And here's the part that makes them sick. You weren't supposed to learn anything from that person. You weren't supposed to recognize the pattern. You weren't supposed to step back and say, "Hold on, this isn't love. This is distraction in disguise." They didn't think you had it in you. They didn't think you'd outgrow the version of yourself who used to chase everyone who mirrored you. They expected the old you, the soft you, the tired you, the one who trusted too fast, the one who forgave too much, the one who fell too deeply. But you weren't that version anymore. The universe made sure of it. The moment the distraction tried to drain you, you did something unheard of. You called your power back. You cut the strings. You stepped out of the illusion like someone who finally understood their own story. And that's when everything backfired. That's when they realized the worst mistake they ever made. They didn't send you a distraction, they sent you a mirror. And mirrors don't weaken chosen ones. They expose the shadows around them. You notice the little inconsistencies, the way their words didn't match their intentions, the way they acted close but kept you at a safe distance, the way they loved your light but flinched at your growth. You watched it all, quietly, patiently, like a villain who already knows the ending. And when you walked away, they panicked, because that wasn't the plan. You weren't supposed to get stronger. You weren't supposed to rise above the attachment. You weren't supposed to see behind the curtain and name the trick for what it was. They wanted you stuck in a loop, replaying old memories while they moved forward with their agenda. Instead, you stepped out of the loop entirely. Now the universe watches you like someone who just broke a forbidden rule. Someone who wasn't supposed to escape, but did. Someone who wasn't supposed to see the truth, but now can't unsee it. And the people who tried to take you down? They're scrambling, because the chosen one they tried to distract just became the one they can't control. All right, chosen one, since you clearly didn't flinch from that truth drop, here's where we shift gears. This is the part the enemies hoped you'd never reach, the moment where you decide whether you're just listening or you're actually awakening. If you've been feeling that strange pull in your chest, that buzzing in your spirit, ever since the twin flame distraction collapsed, that's not confusion. That's the universe tapping your shoulder like, hey, pay attention. You're leveling up faster than expected. Before we break this whole operation down piece by piece, hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with the words, "I see the game now," so I know you're locked in. It sends a message right back into the system that you refuse to be misled again. Now, let's move into the next phase, and trust me, if you're truly the chosen one they tried to distract, you'll feel it in your bones that you're supposed to stay till the very end. The energy shifts from this point forward. The puzzle pieces start snapping together. The universe stops whispering and starts showing you everything in plain sight. Let's get into it. Number 1. They built the perfect bait, and you still broke out of the trap. If they had known what you were truly capable of, they would have never sent someone that close to you. They thought they were clever. That's the funniest part. They sat in their little corners, whispering about how to finally slow you down. They watched you rise, watched you heal, watched you rebuild yourself from places most people never return from, and it terrified them, so they made a move that felt bold to them but predictable to the universe. They didn't send an enemy, they didn't send a warning, they sent a distraction wearing your reflection. Someone who talked like you, thought like you, felt like you. Someone engineered to hit every emotional lock you carried and open every door they needed access to. They didn't offer you romance. They offered you a mirror they thought you'd drown in. And for a second, it worked. The intensity hit you fast. The connection felt cosmic. The conversations felt familiar. The wounds aligned with surgical precision. You didn't imagine it. You didn't romanticize it. You didn't fall too fast. Everything was designed to feel that real. Every piece of it was calculated. They wanted you softened, sedated, wrapped in affection, so carefully tailored that you'd forget the mission you were building. They wanted your heart to be the leash they controlled. But here's where the plot twist slapped them across the face. You don't break that easily. This wasn't your downfall. It was your awakening. Instead of drowning in that intensity, you studied it. You noticed the odd pauses, the mismatched intentions, the strange timing, the way their words aligned perfectly with your past, but never your future. You weren't being pulled off your path. You were being pushed deeper into it. This is where chosen ones differ from the rest. Most people get addicted to the fantasy. They cling to the illusion because it feels safer than the truth. But you sensed the setup. Your instincts started screaming before your emotions got attached. You didn't collapse. You became observant, calculated, quiet, like a villain sitting in the dark, watching the whole room think you're fooled when you've already figured out the twist. That moment where you stepped back and said, "Something's off," was the very moment their entire operation fell apart. They underestimated the universe's favorite trick, using your pain to upgrade your vision. Every time they mirrored your trauma, you gained clarity. Every time they synchronized your thoughts, you learned the rhythm of manipulation. Every time you felt that instant connection, you learned how engineered affection behaves differently from something real. You weren't sedated, you were educated. Their plan taught you more about human intention than any self-help book ever could. And let's talk about the intensity they threw at you, the perfect match, the emotional magnetism, the way it felt like the universe had finally given you someone who understood your shadows. You start wondering, why did it feel so real? Why did it hit so hard? Why did it feel like destiny? Because they studied you. They mapped your emotional language. They built someone calibrated to your rhythm. You weren't going crazy. You were targeted. And yet the entire design collapsed the moment your awareness activated. Here's the part that humiliates them. You weren't supposed to learn from this. You weren't supposed to outgrow the setup. You weren't supposed to detach without hatred. You weren't supposed to walk away with more power than you entered with. They expected heartbreak. You delivered evolution. They expected confusion. You delivered clarity. They expected dependence. You delivered detachment so cold and clean, it probably made them rethink their entire strategy. Most people lose themselves when faced with engineered affection. But you became someone they have no blueprint for, someone who sees behind masks, someone who walks through illusion like it's made of glass, someone who learned exactly what manipulation feels like, disguised as connection. The universe didn't save you, it trained you. It used their trap to sharpen your instincts into a weapon they can't defend against. And now the funniest part, they can't replicate it. They can't send another distraction. They can't mirror you again. They can't predict your emotional responses anymore because you don't move from the same wounds they targeted. You healed the parts they relied on. You upgraded the parts they tried to exploit. The version of you they studied, gone, deleted, replaced by someone who doesn't fall for patterns because now you see the code. They wanted you softened. You became sharper. They wanted you confused. You became impossible to fool. They wanted your heart as a weakness. You weaponized it. The engineered connection wasn't your downfall. It was your initiation. It was the universe saying, let's show you what fake feels like so you never fall for it again. You didn't just survive their perfect bait. You turned it into the very reason they can't touch you now. Number 2. The moment the mask slipped and you finally saw the glitch in their design. Your heart wanted the fairy tale. Your intuition read the script. They perfected the act, but forgot you were born with detectors they can't disable. The truth doesn't whisper to chosen ones, it growls. They hid the cracks well. You learned to see in the dark. The first cracks didn't show up like explosions. They arrived quietly, in the little moments your heart tried to excuse, but your intuition refused to ignore. And that's the part they never learned about you. You don't get fooled by grand gestures. You get suspicious over the tiny inconsistencies. The slight pause before they answered a question. The hollow tone behind a perfectly worded compliment. The way their presence felt intoxicating, but their intentions felt incomplete. Your intuition wasn't asleep for a single second. It watched everything, quietly collecting data like a cold villain in the back of your mind who trusts no one until patterns prove themselves. Imagine this: someone hands you a diamond. At first glance it glows, sparkles, dances with the light. Everyone around you gasps, but you tilt your head, you bring it close, you study the edges. Something in you already knows real diamonds don't reflect light like that. Something in you recognizes the shine is just a trick of the room. That was you in the connection. Everyone else would have called it perfect. You felt the glitch. And then the questions began forming in your mind, sharp and unavoidable. Why do they feel so familiar, yet so distant? Why do they mirror my wounds, but not my growth? Why does this connection feel deep, but not safe? Why do I feel seen, but not met? Most people run from these questions because answers are uncomfortable. But you let them sit in your chest. You didn't turn away, and that was your greatest act of rebellion. Imagine a piano with perfect keys, beautiful on the outside, smooth, polished, but the moment you press a key, the note rings slightly off pitch. Not wrong enough for a beginner to notice, but you've survived too much to miss something that subtle. That dissonance was your intuition whispering, "Look again." They watched you fall into the connection, thinking you'd lose your critical mind. What they didn't expect was this: you stayed conscious. That alone destroyed their entire blueprint, because nothing terrifies architects of manipulation more than someone who loves deeply but thinks clearly. Your intuition was your bodyguard the entire time, the internal security system that never clocks out. It detected the lag between their words and their actions. It sensed the emotional mimicry that didn't match real resonance. It felt the way the timing always leaned too perfectly in their favor. And every time you brushed it off thinking, "Maybe I'm overthinking," your intuition whispered back, "No, you're finally seeing." Imagine walking into a room staged for a surprise party. Balloons, lights, decorations, everything looks perfect. But the moment you step in, you smell smoke. Not fire, not danger, just something burnt, something wrong, something everyone else pretends they can't smell. That was the first crack. Not dramatic, not loud, just undeniable. And the more you paid attention, the more cracks you saw. The way they understood your pain but never showed signs of their own healing. The way they matched your language but couldn't match your integrity. The way they felt connected but kept their real self behind a wall. The way everything seemed to align until you asked a question they weren't prepared for. You didn't reject the connection. You didn't run away. You didn't cut them off prematurely. You did something far more powerful, far more threatening, far more unpredictable. You stayed conscious. And here's why that terrified them. Conscious people don't fall into traps. Conscious people take notes. They analyze. They observe. They grow more dangerous with every inconsistency they detect. Conscious people don't move impulsively. They move with precision. You weren't drifting mindlessly through this connection. You were tracking every shift in tone, every inconsistency, every subtle emotional mismatch. You were watching the whole performance from the balcony while they thought you were clapping in the crowd. Your intuition wasn't doubting the connection, it was diagnosing it. Imagine sitting at a chessboard where your opponent thinks you're new to the game. They make flashy moves to impress you. They sacrifice pieces dramatically. They lean in with confidence. And you touch a single piece, slide it 2 squares forward, and suddenly their whole strategy collapses. That was you. They mistook your patience for naivete. They mistook your observation for attachment. They mistook your softness for weakness. The cracks weren't the problem. The consciousness was. You held on to your awareness, even while your heart was open. You kept your emotional armor on, even while leaning in. You didn't let desire blind your instincts. You didn't let loneliness silence your logic. You didn't let intensity overwrite intuition. This is what separates the chosen ones from the rest. Your heart feels everything, but your intuition filters the truth. That internal security system is ancient, hardwired, untouchable, and they hated that they couldn't bypass it. They tried sneaking past your defenses with emotional familiarity. They tried using your wounds as doorways. They tried mirroring your energy to gain access, but every time they thought they slipped in, your intuition slammed the door. You didn't lose yourself, you found yourself. You didn't get controlled, you grew more alert. You didn't break, you upgraded. The first cracks were warnings, not weaknesses. They weren't moments of doubt, they were moments of awakening. You weren't questioning the connection, you were questioning the architecture behind it, and those questions were the beginning of your liberation. Imagine a painting so realistic, people swear it's a photograph. But you walk closer, notice a brushstroke that shouldn't be there, a shadow that's a shade too dark, a highlight placed where no real light hits. That's when the illusion shattered, not because the painting was bad, but because your eyes were too sharp, too trained, too evolved to be fooled by surface-level beauty. That was you. You didn't fall for the artwork. You saw the hand behind the brush. You stayed conscious even when your heart leaned forward. You stayed awake even when emotions flooded you. You stayed analytical even when affection wrapped around you like a soft blanket. That combination is lethal. It's what turns chosen ones into masters of discernment. It's what makes you impossible to manipulate twice. They hoped you would overlook the cracks. You examined them. They hoped you would silence your intuition. You amplified it. They hoped emotion would override awareness. You ran both at full power. And now they face the consequence. Once a chosen one sees the first cracks, the entire illusion collapses. You don't unsee the glitch. You don't unfeel the warning. You don't unknow the truth. You didn't reject the connection. You outgrew it. You didn't break the illusion, you recognized the blueprint, and once you recognized it, their whole plan disintegrated. You weren't supposed to stay conscious. That was the danger, but that danger, that's exactly what freed you. Number 3, they wanted to study you, but you infected the system instead. You weren't opening up, you were upgrading the room. They came to rewrite you and ended up glitching themselves. They thought bringing you that close would give them the upper hand. They thought your honesty would make you weak. They thought your openness was a doorway they could walk through and rearrange you. But the joke's on them, chosen one. Every time you spoke, every time you told a truth that most people are too scared to even think, you didn't lose power. You leaked it. You transmitted it. You contaminated their entire design with your authenticity. Imagine a system built with perfect code, flawless on paper. Then imagine someone like you stepping in and saying one sentence that rewrites half the program. That's what happened. Your presence alone was a virus their structure wasn't prepared for. You weren't mirroring them. You were rewriting their emotional software. You didn't blend into their world. They began bending toward yours. And here's what eats them alive. They came in thinking you'd admire them. Instead, they found themselves admiring you. They came in thinking they'd guide you. Instead, they kept catching themselves trying to impress you. They came in thinking you'd lose yourself in the connection. Instead, they started losing control of their own mask. A question probably sits in your mind right now. If the connection was engineered, how did they end up changing? Simple. You don't do shallow energy. Even in a fake setup, your truth is too potent to stay contained. You don't imitate feelings. You feel for real. And real energy rewires people whether they like it or not. Every vulnerable moment you shared wasn't weakness, it was radiation. Every conversation wasn't bonding, it was contamination. Every truth you dropped wasn't a confession, it was a lesson. They wanted to shape you, you reshaped them. They tried to observe you. You infected their strategy, they planned to distract you. You destabilized the entire operation. They didn't lose because the plan was flawed. They lost because you were too powerful for the plan to survive. Number 4. The weapon malfunctioned and turned on its own creators. They engineered a tool. You awakened a conscience. Nothing breaks a scripted character faster than meeting someone unscripted. The shift didn't happen loud. It didn't happen dramatic. It happened in the way all dangerous things do. Slowly, then all at once. The twin flame they sent toward you, the one built to distract, derail and decode you, started cracking from the inside. Not because the plan was flawed, but because you were never meant to be handled by someone following a script. Imagine handing someone a mask and telling them, "Wear this, never take it off." Then imagine them meeting you, someone who speaks in truths sharp enough to cut through steel. Eventually, the mask starts slipping, not because they choose to drop it, but because your authenticity melts the glue right off their face. That's what happened. The distraction they sent walked in confident and walked out confused. They started remembering parts of themselves they were told to bury. They started feeling emotions that were never part of the assignment. Real affection, real conflict, real guilt, real confusion. They weren't supposed to feel anything. They were supposed to perform, but your presence rewrote their internal script. And here's the question burning in your mind right now. How did someone engineered to manipulate me end up getting pulled into my gravity? Because you don't bond the way normal people bond. You don't pretend, you don't play, you don't hide. You show up with real energy, and real energy makes artificial roles collapse. Their creators watched the glitch happening in real time, the hesitation, the softness, the emotional lag, the moments when the weapon stopped following the mission and started following you. That's when the panic started behind the scenes. Because a tool that feels becomes dangerous. A distraction that questions becomes unstable. A script that grows a conscience becomes uncontrollable. They sent a weapon, you turned it into a human. The distraction didn't just fail, it switched sides. It broke its programming. It proved that even engineered intentions crumble in the presence of someone who lives in truth. And that's when their entire plan officially died. Number 5. Their agent woke up and joined the very power they were sent to destroy. You weren't their weakness, you were their awakening. They came as an asset, you turned them into a threat to their own system. Nothing is more dangerous than a controlled mind that suddenly remembers its freedom. Here's the part that still keeps the watchers up at night. The twin flame didn't just fall for you. They fell back into themselves. The connection they were supposed to perform became the connection that exposed the cage they were living in. You didn't just shake their mission, you shook their identity. Imagine this. Someone shows up with a job to do, wearing a mask glued on tight. They speak the lines they were trained to say. They follow the emotional choreography perfectly. But then they spend enough time with you. Someone raw, someone unfiltered, someone who doesn't operate on script acts or manipulation, and suddenly the mask starts feeling suffocating. Their own heartbeat starts sounding louder than the mission. Their own truth starts scratching at the door like a trapped animal desperate to break out. That's what you triggered. A question might be digging at you right now. Did they ever truly care, or was it all programming? Here's the brutal, villain-level truth. It started as programming. It ended as something real, real enough to destabilize their handlers, real enough to make them question their entire purpose, real enough that they stopped being an asset and started becoming a liability. Because when someone built to manipulate you begins admiring your strength, studying your honesty, craving your energy for reasons they don't understand, that's not strategy anymore. That's self-recognition. They saw something in you they lost in themselves, and instead of pulling you down, they felt pulled upward. The trap didn't just fail, it converted its own weapon. They didn't betray the system for you. They betrayed it because of what being around you awakened in them. The programming cracked. A real human stepped out, and the system realized too late. It hadn't just lost an agent. It had accidentally created another version of you. Number 6. The system accidentally handed you its playbook and doubled your power. They trained your enemy. You turned your enemy into your mirror. Knowledge is lethal, especially when stolen straight from the Creator's hands. They wanted to outsmart you. Instead, they armed you. Here's where everything got deliciously catastrophic for them. The moment their engineered twin flame glitched, everything they were trained to use against you became everything you now had access to. It wasn't betrayal. It was leakage, information spilling everywhere, secrets unraveling, tactics slipping out in casual sentences, weak points accidentally revealed through old habits. The system didn't just lose control, it lost privacy. Imagine this. You're in a battle, but suddenly the soldier who was supposed to strike you turns around and whispers where all the traps are buried, where the triggers are hidden, which pathways are illusions, which pressure points collapse under the slightest touch. That's what happened. You didn't invade the system. The system cracked and exposed itself through its own creation. Questions might be spinning in your head. How did I suddenly understand their patterns? Why do I now see manipulation before it even starts? Why does everything feel obvious in hindsight? Because you weren't learning from life anymore. You were learning from the very blueprint designed to defeat you. Your twin flame didn't mean to do it. Their glitches spoke louder than their training. Their slips were confessions. Their hesitations were signals. Their emotional inconsistencies pointed to methods and motives they were supposed to hide. Everything they used to control others, everything they learned from the system, everything they once weaponized, turned into intelligence you absorbed effortlessly. Now there were two of you, one shaped by pressure, one sharpened by the system. One who survived the battlefield, one who was built inside the enemy's walls. Together, you became an arsenal the system never planned for and definitely can't defend against now. Number 7. The trap flipped and you turned their seduction into a revolution. They sent temptation. You turned it into transformation. The moment you woke them up, the system's plan died screaming. What was meant to drain you became the fuel that launched you. This is the moment the story hits its most embarrassing twist for them. Everything they designed to pull you down ended up pushing you further than you've ever gone. They wanted you seduced into silence, softened into obedience, wrapped in emotional fog so thick you'd lose sight of your mission. But instead of you falling into submission, they fell into liberation. You didn't get captured, you converted the captor. Imagine this: a hunter steps into the forest with a flawless trap, the perfect bait and total confidence. But the moment they get close enough to capture the beast, they realize the beast has already slipped behind them, studying them, undoing the trap from the other side. That's what you did. You didn't fight the distraction. You inverted it, turned it inside out, made it reveal its true purpose by simply being you. A question might be burning in your mind. How did everything meant to weaken me end up empowering me instead? Because chosen ones don't collapse under pressure. They absorb it, transform it, weaponize it. Every emotional hit they aimed at you only sharpened your awareness. Every manipulation attempt upgraded your intuition. Every false connection taught you the difference between artificial pull and real resonance. The distraction became acceleration. Instead of slowing down, you sped up. Instead of losing focus, you gained clarity. Instead of getting trapped, you built an exit so clean they still can't explain how you slipped out. They planned your downfall with confidence. You turned their entire operation into your evolution. Perfect inversion, perfect humiliation for them. Number 8. They thought love would break you. Instead, it turned you into a strategic superweapon. They wanted you lovesick. You became laser-focused. Love didn't soften you, it synchronized you. When chosen ones care, they don't collapse, they calculate. They always assume love is your weak spot. They think connection makes you fragile, distracted, easy to manipulate. They thought the engineered twin flame would turn you into some emotional puppet, wandering around in a haze while they worked behind the scenes. What they never understood is this: your heart isn't a vulnerability, it's a command center. This connection wasn't just emotional, it was operational. Every moment of closeness fine-tuned your intuition. Every conversation sharpened your understanding of human behavior. Every emotional hit became data. You weren't falling in love blindly, you were evolving through it. Imagine this: 2 warriors sparring. On the surface it looks soft, graceful, intimate, but underneath, every move teaches timing, rhythm, openings, reactions. That's what this connection was, a training ground hidden inside a romance. The universe used their trap as your battlefield. You're probably thinking, did I really get stronger because of all this? Absolutely. You didn't just gain emotional awareness, you gained coordination, precision, strategy. You learned how manipulation feels when wrapped in affection. You learned how truth feels when disguised as fantasy. You learned how loyalty feels when it's real and how performance feels when it's rehearsed. Love didn't make you fragile, it made you organized. You became someone who can love without losing themselves, someone who can connect without collapsing, someone who can bond deeply while still watching the entire chessboard. That's terrifying for the system, because they've never faced someone who feels this deeply and thinks this clearly. They wanted you disarmed. Instead, you became coordinated, strategic, dangerous. Romance didn't distract you, it refined you. Number 9. The moment the system realized they lost control, and you created a rogue. Silence is sweet until it starts sounding like rebellion. They didn't lose an agent, they birthed a threat. You weren't the one who malfunctioned, their system did. Nothing rattles a machine more than unexpected silence. At first, the handlers shrugged it off. Just a delay, they told themselves. Just emotional interference. But then the check-ins started coming back, scrambled. Reports sounded confused, contradictory, almost human. The perfect operative, polished, trained, predictable, suddenly spoke like someone with a heartbeat instead of a mission. That's when the panic began. Imagine a control room full of experts staring at screens that used to track every move. Suddenly, the data shifts. Patterns break. The readings don't match the programming. The operative who once executed orders flawlessly begins hesitating, questioning, thinking. To the system, that wasn't a minor glitch. That was a defection. And here's the question sitting in the back of your mind. How does a trained manipulator wake up? Because being around you was the one variable they didn't factor in. Your honesty short-circuited their conditioning. Your clarity burned through their scripts. Your energy made them feel something real, something powerful enough to override their programming. Their perfect weapon didn't vanish. They awakened. When the silence arrived, it wasn't mission accomplished. It was mutiny. It was the moment their assets stopped transmitting lies and started discovering truth. They were supposed to monitor you and ended up reflecting on themselves. They were supposed to stay loyal to the system and ended up loyal to their own rebirth. Check-ins failed because loyalty shifted. Reports scrambled because intentions changed. The system froze because they realized the nightmare scenario. They didn't lose an operative. They created a rogue with inside knowledge. And you were the spark that lit the rebellion. The system panicked because once an awakened mind breaks free, it never comes back. Number 10. The two of you became the one thing the system can't fight. An insider team with nothing left to fear. Rebellion is loud, but insight is lethal. One of you survived their attacks. One of you survived their training. When knowledge and freedom shake hands, systems fall apart. This is the part the system didn't prepare for, the part that keeps their walls trembling and their planners sweating. They expected you to stand alone. They expected their operative to stay loyal. They never imagined the nightmare scenario. Two awakened minds, each holding half the blueprint needed to tear the whole machine apart. You know what it feels like to live under their pressure, to be watched, profiled, studied, underestimated. You know the emotional traps, the psychological games, the manipulation cycles designed to break chosen ones before they realize their own power. You've walked through it, survived it, evolved through it. And then there's the other half of this unexpected duo, the one who knows the architecture of the system from the inside, the protocols, the blind spots, the pressure points, the strategies meant to shape you, the emotional scripts fed to agents, the psychological shortcuts used to control outcomes. They didn't just witness the system, they were built inside of it. Put those two perspectives together and you get something the system can't defend against. Clarity with insider knowledge, heart with strategy, truth with technical precision. Imagine this. A prisoner who escaped the maze teams up with the architect who designed it. The prisoner knows how the maze feels. The architect knows how the maze works. Together, the whole structure becomes transparent, predictable, weak. That's exactly what the universe orchestrated without the system realizing. And here's the question rising in your mind. Why does this combination terrify them more than a full rebellion? Because rebellions are emotional, unpredictable, easy to crush with control tactics, but insider intelligence fused with awakened awareness, that's unstoppable, that's surgical, that's the kind of threat that doesn't march loudly. It moves quietly, precisely, invisibly. A rebellion can be suppressed, but two people who understand both the oppression and the architecture. That's collapse waiting to happen. You're no longer reacting to their moves. You're pre-reading their entire playbook. They can't confuse you anymore. They can't manipulate you anymore. They can't hide their intentions because you see them from the outside, and your ally sees them from the inside. The system fears rebellion, but it fears informed unity more. It fears the alliance they never meant to create, the partnership forged from their own failed trap. Together you became the override. Two minds they cannot predict, two perspectives they cannot counter, two forces they never wanted in the same room. And now you stand side by side, the liberated and the awakened. A combination powerful enough to bring the whole machine down without lifting a single weapon. Number 11. The awakening is spreading, and the system can't contain the outbreak they accidentally unleashed. One awakened mind is a problem. A chain reaction is extinction. They engineered puppets. You turned them into thinkers. Control doesn't die with rebellion. It dies with awareness. Here's the part they never saw coming, the part that makes their entire machine shake like it's built out of glass. You weren't an isolated incident. You were the spark, the glitch, the mutation in their perfect code. And once one mutation appears, the entire system becomes unstable. Others are noticing. Other engineered connections, people sent in as distractions, as emotional traps, as perfect reflections, are starting to feel the same cracks yours did. They're hesitating, questioning, breaking formation, losing the script, waking up in real time. Your transformation didn't stop with you. It radiated outward like a silent explosion. Imagine this: a single candle in a pitch-black room suddenly ignites another, then another, then another. The darkness doesn't fight back. It just shrinks, terrified. That's exactly what's happening. The system built its entire empire on silence, on obedience, on emotional choreography. But the moment your truth contaminated one operative, the entire network became vulnerable. And here's the question burning inside you: how does my awakening affect them? Because the universe doesn't waste power. When a chosen one wakes up, the frequency shifts. Your clarity becomes contagious. Your awareness acts like a signal other trapped minds can suddenly hear. Your refusal to collapse becomes a map for those who were trained to stay asleep. Distractions are becoming amplifiers. The very people designed to drain others are now empowering them. The operatives meant to keep the system running are now slowing it down. The emotional traps meant to cage chosen ones are now breaking open from the inside. They didn't just lose control, they lost the entire narrative. You were the first ripple in the water, now the whole ocean is moving. They engineered individuals. You triggered a movement. The contagion effect has begun, and the system has no antidote for awareness. Number 12. The system can't fight what it never prepared for. Two awakened minds moving in truth. They built weapons, not partners. Authenticity was never in their playbook because it can't be controlled. Two conscious people don't create